Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming here on this beautiful, gorgeous Michigan day here in Ann Arbor. On behalf of myself and my family, I want to thank Sandy Smith for that incredible introduction. Sandy, thank you so much again. Where are you, Sandy? Oh, there she is. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for letting us use your place again, too. I want to introduce my family. This is my wife, Alana McGuire, and our two sons, Alex and Zach. And then standing behind us, my mother and father, Sandy and Marty Nessel, and my in-laws, my wonderful in-laws, Ray and Mary McGuire. Thank you guys for being here today. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dana Nessel, and I am running for Michigan Attorney General. Now, the last time many of you saw me here, it was, as Sandy mentioned, June 26, 2015, the day the United States Supreme Court ended our 4-year battle against the office of the Attorney General and definitively struck down the marriage ban on the marriage equality ban here in Michigan and also nationwide. Now, it was a great day. It was definitely a great day. Now, in that case, as you know, the Michigan Attorney General squandered many millions of dollars fighting against the interests of hundreds of thousands of our state residents. And how I grew to loathe the office of the Michigan Attorney General and all that it stood for these last several terms. And not just on the marriage equality case, not just on that issue, on so many issues, the AG has moved away from the office's intended purpose of protecting the residents of this state and instead has been used to persecute the good people of Michigan. And like many people who choose to seek elected office recently, I have watched with concern and dismay as special interests have used their financial power to literally purchase justice in this state. So, to quote President Obama, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. So I could spend my entire life lamenting the politicization of the office of Michigan Attorney General. I could use the rest of my career to file lawsuits against the AG and complain bitterly about how this office has been used to protect high-paying special interests instead of protecting our people who deserve so much better than what they have here now. Or I could seek to fill the office of the Attorney General with the values that I believe the 10 million residents of Michigan really care about. Now, when I was growing up, during the many years that Frank Kelly was in the AG's office, I understood the office to be part of our state government that was there to protect the people, where Michiganders could have a legal champion to fight against bad actors who conned them, scanned them, poisoned them, discriminated against them, and otherwise took advantage of our state residents. Frank Kelly was a big inspiration to me in deciding to go to law school, and I wanted to fight for the same rights and protections of everyday people as I saw him and his attorneys doing. But now this office is a place where our state's lawyers argue that under the state's control, public school children have no right to be taught basic literacy skills, or that our state government should be allowed to label good, decent people who have lost their jobs as crooks and then destroy their credit and steal their savings without recourse and without indemnification. People, the office of the Michigan Attorney General has lost its way. They aren't fighting for the little guy. They aren't fighting to protect our people against rogue, bad actors hurting our most vulnerable. Instead, now they are the bad actors who have demonstrated that they are willing to do anything and everything to protect government entities who have committed egregious, unconscionable acts against the people of our state. Now, when I was a prosecutor, I was taught that the job of an attorney who represents the government is to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to pursue the interests of justice. Now, justice can mean many different things. Sometimes justice meant putting a person in prison for the rest of their life. Sometimes it was offering probation or drug or alcohol treatment. Sometimes it was dismissing a case entirely if the facts merited it. And sometimes it was not charging a person at all. See, it wasn't about winning, whatever that means. It wasn't about the number of convictions you racked up. It wasn't about stats. It was about looking at each and every case individually and determining what was best for the parties and what was best for the community as a whole. And that is how the AG's office ought to function. When I hear people talk about the position of AG, I always hear it promoted as Michigan's top cop. And everyone who runs for the office does so under the promise to be tough on crime. But being tough on crime doesn't just mean prosecuting drug dealers. It doesn't just mean prosecuting rapists or murderers or gang members. It doesn't just mean, there's so many other kinds of crimes being committed against Michiganders every single day. Sending toxins into the air is a crime. Poisoning our rivers, streams, and lakes, that's a crime. Financial exploitation of our seniors, that's a crime. Auto insurance fraud, predatory loan practices by financial institutions, those are crimes too. Now, Michigan has 83 county prosecutors and 2 U.S. attorneys' offices who are all going after street crimes and violent acts being committed in our neighborhoods. But who's going after the corporations who refuse to play by the rules and to create massive environmental hazards which are literally killing large segments of our population? Who is protecting consumers subjected to deplorable forms of financial deception and fraud by unscrupulous debt collectors? And who is protecting our minority populations against hate crimes? It's the Office of the Michigan Attorney General who ought to be responsible for protecting our state residents for all these various kinds of criminal acts and deceitful and unethical actors. And I don't know if the current occupant of the AG's office refuses to go after these entities because they are campaign donors for him, or simply because of a philosophical belief that corporate actors ought to be able to engage in any practice that enhances their bottom line, no matter how unfair those practices are, no matter how many laws they violate, and no matter how many people they hurt. But that is not the way the office ought to be operating. If our Attorney General refuses to protect the people of the state of Michigan, then who will? For far too long, this office has been utilized as a political machine for those seeking a stepping stone, the governor's mansion. Each and every decision is based on considerations related to how is this going to present for my next campaign, rather than what's really best for the people of this state. Well, I will promise you this. I will not use the resources of this office for any other purpose than to protect Michiganders from the kinds of activities that interfere with their ability to live peaceably and safely in the state that we all love. And because I have such disdain for politicians who speak in bland generalities and platitudes, but avoid clear-cut proposals, let me be specific about some of the policies that are of great importance to me. Just some. I know it's been a long time. So as an assistant prosecuting attorney every day for 11 years, when I would go on the record, sometimes dozens of times, dozens of cases each day, I would always begin the same way. Your Honor, Dana Nessel, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan. But sometimes it was a mouthful, so sometimes I would just say, Dana Nessel for the people. Now, I didn't say I was just representing the white people, or the Christian people, or the male people, or people born in the United States, or just straight people, or just the wealthy people. I represented all the people. And as your Attorney General, I will work relentlessly to ensure that every resident of this great state knows, understands, and is made to feel that they belong here, and that the Office of the Attorney General will work to represent everyone, all of us. Under my authority, the state of Michigan will not tolerate hate crimes and will not tolerate persecution or discrimination against Muslims, African Americans, the LGBTQ community, or minorities of any kind. I will set up a hate crimes division which will aggressively investigate and prosecute these outrageous acts which signal to the communities that are most vulnerable to these attacks that they are somehow not as important as all other groups of people. I will also advocate to include additional classes of people in the Ethnic Intimidation Act and to impose stronger penalties for those who violate our hate crime laws. Additionally, I will infuse the Civil Rights Division with more personnel and more resources to prosecute housing discrimination, voting rights discrimination, access to fair housing and lending opportunities, equal access to employment and educational opportunities, and equal access for individuals with disabilities. Equally as important, I will make certain that the Office of Attorney General and its enormous staff better reflects the people of this great state. So many of the smartest, hardest, most experienced, and most passionate legal advocates I know are people of color. They're Muslim and Persian, and Hispanic and Indian, Native American and Asian attorneys, lawyers who identify as LGBTQ, attorneys who've emigrated here from other nations. I have one right in my family. The state of Michigan deserves to have the best and brightest of all cultures and backgrounds representing the very diverse population of our state. Let me say one more last thing about this that I threw in, given the events over the weekend in Virginia. Now, we may not have any statues of Robert E. Lee that require removal or any other tributes to the Confederacy, which are ugly reminders of our past. I'm proud to have been born in and lived my entire life in a state which fought on the right side of history in the Civil War. But we are still a state with 28 identifiable hate groups, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. And like any state in America, Michigan is a place with significant issues of hate and discrimination against our minority populations. So how can we even begin to contemplate allowing even one more person to occupy the office of Attorney General who doesn't have a strong civil rights background and who we can know for a fact will fight tooth and nail against the forces of hatred and bigotry, instead of merely paying lip service and providing empty gestures? Now, I founded an organization that prosecutes more hate crimes in a few months than most prosecutors ever charged in a decade. Thanks, Jamie. So, no matter what you look like, no matter where you were born, who you love, what gender you identify with, what religion you choose, if you even choose to practice any religion at all, if I am the Attorney General of this state, you will be safe, you will be protected, and hate will not win. I will strictly enforce our environmental codes and the provisions of the Michigan Constitution, which protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the people and entitles all Michiganders the right to access the air, water, and other natural resources of the state free from pollution, impairment, and destruction. I actually lifted that right from the Michigan Constitution, Article 4, Section 52. You can look it up. As Michigan Attorney General, my first day in office, I will file suit to shut down Enbridge Line 5. No more studies, no more debates, and no more risking the sanctity of the Great Lakes, the drinking water supply for hundreds of thousands of Michigan residents and 20% of the Earth's fresh surface water. I will create an auto insurance fraud division, which will aggressively work to root out bad actors, which contributes to Michigan having the highest auto insurance rates in the nation. States all over the country have these types of units in their attorneys general offices. How can Michigan afford not to? I will infuse a considerable increase in resources to combat elder abuse, elder neglect, and the economic exploitation of seniors and vulnerable adults in this state. Now, we may not all be the same race or religion or ethnicity or sexual orientation or what have you, and we might be Democrats, Republicans, independents, conservatives, moderates, or progressives, but we all have one thing in common, don't we? God willing, we're all going to grow old at some point. Physical and financial abuse against seniors is an epidemic in this state that has been permitted to proliferate for far too long, and it is shameful. No more. If I am AG, we will protect Michigan seniors, and this is a promise that will not be broken. Now, for all the language and tough talk we hear out of Lansing about supporting local law enforcement, the truth is our elected officials have done little to provide police officers with the resources and support they require to do their jobs properly. We're quick to point our fingers at the police when mistakes are made, but we are setting our law officers up to fail when we don't provide them with the proper training, equipment, lab resources, and other means that they require. I intend to be our law officers and police department's biggest advocate when it comes to demonstrating to the state why those who put their lives on the line every day for us deserve to be properly compensated with decent pay and benefits. We can't pay our officers $15 an hour with no health insurance, no life insurance, and no pension, and then expect to recruit the cream of the crop and ask them to risk their lives for us. We must do right by our police personnel. Our men and women in blue should not be a political football that gets tossed around during election season. Now, I am a person who believes we can support our fine police forces and those who protect and serve the community with great distinction while still holding law enforcement accountable for questionable or wrongful acts. So I pledge to create a conviction integrity unit to investigate and evaluate claims of wrongful convictions across the state. We will have a licensing division to ensure that bad cops don't simply move from department to department when they've committed acts of excessive force or violations of the public trust, but rather that they are stripped of their license to work as law enforcement officers. We have so many upstanding police officers in this state, and I'm tired of a few bad apples spoiling the bunch and perpetuating stain across this great and noble profession. I will have a unit that specifically investigates and prosecutes acts of police misconduct so that this job does not fall upon the local prosecutors who still must work with these officers and their colleagues day in and day out. It's not right, it's not fair to the prosecutors who so badly try to do the right thing. It's not fair to the officers, and most importantly, it's not fair to the community who depends on law enforcement to be objective and unbiased in these determinations. I am committed to working with as much conviction and dedication to support and protect the rights of women in our state as anyone who has ever held the office of Michigan Attorney General. The AG's office has layers and layers of highly paid political appointees who never try a case and never see the inside of a courtroom. These bureaucrats will be replaced with highly trained trial attorneys who can handle multi-jurisdictional criminal sexual conduct cases, domestic violence cases, and human trafficking cases. And did you know that the AG's office currently only has one assistant AG handling CSC cases or rape cases and one that handles human traffickers? I find that to be completely unacceptable. I will strictly enforce laws which allow for women to have safe access to medical treatment, which includes prosecuting those who threaten or intimidate women or staffers at clinics which provide women's health care services. Nor will I stand idly by while those in Lansing, I'm already being watched, while those in Lansing or Washington attempt to strip women of their ability to access health care. Now, the recent efforts to defund Planned Parenthood are per se unconstitutional, and as Attorney General, I will defend the Constitution on behalf of the women of this state. I will stand strongly in opposition to any legislative efforts which infringes on the constitutional right for women to obtain birth control or laws which illegally obstruct their right to choose. If I am Attorney General, the emphasis on consumer protection in this office will be restored. If you take a look at aggressive AGs around the country who are working tenaciously to protect their state residents against such serious matters as fraud perpetrated against student loan holders, companies who illegally dump hazardous waste, or fighting the opioid epidemic against the pharmaceutical companies, the Michigan Attorney General has been largely invisible. Michigan residents are missing out on millions, sometimes billions of dollars in settlements in restitution for our state and its residents. So how will we pay for these programs in order to vigorously protect Michiganders? Well, let me say this. After a quarter century in the courtroom, I, for one, am tired of prosecuting and tired of defending marijuana cases. It's time, Michigan. It's time to remove marijuana from our penal code. It's time to stop utilizing millions of tax dollars investigating, testing, and prosecuting marijuana cases while we still have rape kits sitting on the shelf and cold case murders which go unsolved. And yes, we need to work diligently to prepare for better methods of keeping marijuana out of the hands of children and more advanced means to test and prosecute those who drive under its influence. But with thousands of opioid overdoses taking place in our state, how much longer can we afford to pretend that marijuana is a worthy target of Michigan's war against drugs? I expect recreational use of marijuana to be legal by the time I take office, and we need an Attorney General who will truly respect the will of the people. Now, in these bizarre and often alarming times, our state attorneys general are the last line of defense against federal overreach in a myriad of areas. Whether it's fighting back against federal efforts to deregulate environmental and consumer protections which were put in place to shield our residents from harm, or whether it's defiantly defending Michiganders from executive actions which treat them unfairly or discriminate against their families, Michigan needs an Attorney General who will be unwavering in the commitment to represent all the people of our state. I hope to be that kind of Attorney General. I want people of every background, every walk of life, to finally be able to look at the office of the Michigan Attorney General again and say, now that is someone who cares about me. That's someone who cares about everyone. And I want to be the kind of Attorney General who fights to protect all of us. And I thank everybody so much for coming out and being here today, and for my family for suffering this sort of abuse. Thank you to my friends and supporters who came here today, and I'm happy to talk to reporters one-on-one at your leisure. So anyway, thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for being here.